Thank you. So we talked last time about trying to get some cost estimates for major repair work to jump to 401 State Street, and I'm still waiting on those estimates. I do know that both the engineers from SmartWad and CPL have talked, and they have all the numbers, but they haven't put it together in a presentation yet. So we should have that, I hope, in the next month or so here for next month's Public Works meeting. Probably we'll present that. You know, we started down this road. We wanted to have real cost estimates on repairing 401 as we got talking about John L. Edwards a couple of years ago. Then the city was going to take on John L. Edwards. Now I understand from a couple different directions that the city is not going to pursue John L. Edwards, and they don't want to put the youth center there. Is that true, Linda? Do you agree with that, or?
Yes, that's what I asked the mayor, and he said they were not interested anymore.
Yep. Okay. So that could become another option for us to look again someday, but I still wanted to have real cost estimates on repairing 401. So we'll wait on those a little bit. On another subject, we had spoke last time about being approached about the unused land at the DSS property that Galvin wanted to pursue for a parking lot. And Supervisor Guzzi had made the suggestion that we look at developing that and then leasing it, so maybe at a higher price, because we do have people that can do blacktopping and whatnot. But after conversations with our county attorney and our controller, I don't think that's the best use of taxpayer dollars. If it was just Jimmy or I and we were in private business, that is a good business venture. But I think that if we have deemed it to be surplus land, that we should just get an appraisal and offer it for sale, and not spend any money on it at all, just cut it loose. But that involves, we would have to, get an appraisal on it to see whether it's worth it and whether we have any interest in that or not. So what's everybody feel about that?
Well, I feel that we need to get an appraisal so we know what those numbers are and see if the thing is even worth it.
Right.
So you're going to have to figure out, we're going to have to get an appraisal no matter any way we do it,
Yeah.
That would be my opinion on it. Yeah.
It's probably value would be higher as a park and used for parking. And we don't know yet if Galvin, if that's going to go through or not. I wouldn't sell them the property or have a disclaimer on there that if their project doesn't go through, that we don't sell them that land. Something.
Well, again, the process would be is if we deemed it to be surplus and found out an appraised value, and then offered it, we would put it out to the highest bidder. It's not like we're saying they could buy it or not. I do know they're interested in it, but it could be bought by anybody, for any purpose.
Well, I doubt anybody else would be interested but them.
Well, and I think that's why we're kind of pursuing this, because it does hold some value to them. They might pay us, more money for it. But
the trouble is
that project's being wrestled with. But yes, Jimmy.
It becomes a double-edged sword with the appraisal somewhat, because that changes the bargaining deal on it. If we got a real low appraisal on it, but I guess it's the way we have to do it, right, Rob? I mean, we have to do the appraisal to get rid of this. We can't just go to them and see what they'd offer us for it.
Yeah, that's correct. We have to ensure that we get a reasonable market value for it. And the only way to really do that is to have an appraisal completed.
Is that land buildable at all? Because I heard some talk at one point that we would build an annex there, but I thought when we were talking before, it's not really buildable land or usable for a building.
Yeah, I haven't done any zoning analysis under Hudson's code to see if you could put another building on there or not.
Well, it might be fill or something. Rick, do you know?
Well, I know a large portion of it was that retaining pond. That when the hospital did that big dig up there, Pike brought all the excess soils down there that they had and filled in the retaining pond. I think Jerry was the chairperson at that time. So how stable it is, I don't know at this point. It's just a matter. And the other thing, I think we probably would have to bring Dean or somebody to look at what's under the ground there right currently that runs across the road to find out if it even can be made into a parking lot. So I think we should utilize our own engineer services to take a look at those lands over there to see where the pipes are. And because, if you go by there, it's pretty well contoured down at the very end that goes across the road there. So I don't know if the pipe goes fully to the road or it just stops and there's a huge swale in there where the water ends up dumping there. So I think it would be in our best interest to ask, Dean to go over there and look at, see where the pipes are, where the water flows from the Green Street area. And, would it be a good idea to even build anything on it, even in a parking lot?
Ron, do we have a need for a parking lot there?
I did call Bob Gibson and asked him that and said, and he kind of said they could use a few more parking spots. They were kind of talking about having some close by the building that were designated, for some certain staff or something like that. But I haven't really heard that we need a lot of parking.
So if we had an appraisal done on it and the appraisal was in the tubes and it really wasn't a big
Right.
deal for us, then the option is we still got the option of going ahead and saying, okay, then we'll just build our own parking lot, maybe,
Right.
back to that again. I'm not pushing that. I'm just saying, my
Yeah.
concern is we get this low estimate appraisal on it. And then you look
Right.
at it and go, wow, this is no
Well,
big deal.
if we do, and that's going to come back to us at some point, and we're going to decide whether it's even worth to sell it. Maybe you
Yeah.
do want to hang on to it.
So we need the appraisal, I think, no matter how you do it, in a way.
Yeah. And back to Rick's question, I don't mind bringing Dean in, but that wasn't county owned when that was done. Wasn't that more of a city drainage issue? Isn't that
No.
something?
No, that was all county.
Was it really? Okay.
It was the county's retaining pond, and the county is the one that ended up giving the permission to fill it up because
Okay.
of the safety issue.
All right.
And
Could we get an,
On it.
here's the thing Jim, about an appraisal. Appraisal is one thing, but when you put it openly up to bid, I don't think you're really going to get as low as an appraisal when you open it up. You have a private sealed bid, you probably even get more, in my opinion. But if you have an open bid, you're going to get a considerable amount more than the appraisal because it's worth more to the individual who will be bidding on it.
It's like our foreclosed properties. I mean, we set a minimum price of $10,000 on properties and sell them for 25 sometimes because
Yeah, you're going to get more.
Yes,
could we set the appraisal could also be done on a lease too? Can we ask it like that? Like what would this lease for if we were to get a full blown appraisal on it, then find out if you were to lease it, what would the numbers be, for a parking lot?
Yeah, we can ask that, Jimmy. I mean, they still have to come up with the highest and best value and then, do the analysis. So it's similar work.
Yeah.
Ron, it's PJ. I know we're talking about, getting rid of 610, so on and so forth, and we're struggling trying to find space for people.
Yep.
Is there any consideration of doing an addition at the DSS building and using this existing land for extra parking for our own people? Are we giving away, I guess my question is, are we giving away something that we could potentially
an
need?
asset that we could use. Yeah.
Again, going back to what we discussed, I'm not sure we want to put a building on that
You're not going to.
based on the fill.
On the DSS?
Yeah, I mean, a parking lot's one thing, a building's
Yeah.
something totally different.
I'm talking about on addition to the DSS building.
On the
Yeah,
other
that's what I
side of
mean.
it. You're talking about, PJ, you're saying in addition off the other side of DSS and then use this as a parking area.
Okay.
I mean, just a thought. Again, it's kind of following along with Jimmy's suggestion here. Are we going to give away something that we could really use or need in the near future? That's all. I don't want to complicate things.
No, and I get it. And I think that, this is why this committee is here because we're trying to look at a lot of different ideas. And as you say, there is a lot of space needs we have in the county. And, what is the best plan. So kicking around these ideas is all good talk, you know?
I will say that the existing parking lot is, the soils there, aren't they? I think it's all clay there as well. And we had, matter of fact, we had a lot of trouble with the parking lot initially because it kept sinking.
Right,
So we just need to be careful with that.
because it was all put on film, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to be clear, you were talking about the possibility of adding on to the DSS building?
Yeah, some way, shape, or form.
Oh.
I mean, I'm not an engineer, but all I'm saying is we're gonna give away this parking area. Could it possibly, would we possibly need it in the near future if we did something else with the DSS building? And again, just a possibility.
It was extremely questionable about purchasing that thing in the first place
Right,
as a result of what was under the lands.
right.
So I don't know if you want to go digging any more down for an addition.
Mhm.
Well, we'd have to get somebody to evaluate it. That's
We did, PJ. I got quite a bit of extensive evaluations on that. It is questionable.
yeah.
Yeah.
Tony Conquer thanks me every time I see him.
Yeah,
You guys remember early on when the city or when the county was suggesting to buy that purchase there, that green water that was coming out? You
Yep.
remember that full stream of green water that was coming out from under the ground? Everybody was getting nervous about it, and they found out that it was just
Allergy.
metals. Metals there. So who knows what's there?
Okay.
Maybe half of maybe. Anyhow.
anyway, so do we want to get an appraisal of that to further consider it, or where do we want to go?
I think we need to get an appraisal,
That's
You
fine.
need to have a
one way
motion.
or
Rob.
another.
I agree.
We have it in the budget somewhere. It's probably 1,500, right, for that.
Yeah,
Yes,
we could find the money for that.
I agree
So-
with Matt.
So what's the difference between the, so leasing it's out of the question? That's before we,
Not totally, not totally. Per what Jimmy Guzzi has just said, you know, in terms of if our appraisal is so low, we may not want to sell it.
And the leasing would come in, Linda, if we have the appraisal, then we could maybe look at that and we can then, you can get more for the lease because they're not purchasing it. So we may be able to maybe bring it up a little higher. I don't know. It's just an option, it's just for discussion.
well, if
We
you're
should-
worried about selling it at this point, maybe it's better just to lease it to them. And then you have an option to use it at a later point.
Mhm.
Just an idea.
Yeah, it is. That's what I was saying originally, but I think we still need the appraisal, so we got somewhere to work from,
Yep.
according to Rob, because I guess it's definitely different than us doing it on the private sector, the way we would do it,
Yeah, but the appraisal has nothing to do with the lease. That's just,
Well, they're gonna
Leases are
probably, I don't know if they'd want us to base the lease off of something, right, Rob? I don't know. Or can we just do a lease without it?
It really depends. You could do a lease where you just lease it as is and they do all the engineering, analysis, construction, but that would factor into the price. I think we need a jumping off point for price, which is going to be the appraisal.
Could we just set our own lease price and just say we're gonna come up with X number and it's not based upon an appraisal somewhere in the line, or is that gonna be an issue for us?
It would be an issue. We need to have some basis for what we're setting the price as.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought you were saying before.
Someone would claim you're giving it away and someone would claim you're overcharging, and what do you point to explain it? So you need a reasoned analysis of value.
yeah, but that's not an appraisal. That's just comparables for leasing a parking space.
Well, it could, yes. You got to factor in any environmental that's involved there, whatever that piping infrastructure is, and then what the improvement costs would be. If they have to put in $500,000 to make it a parking lot, but then we're going to lease it for $10,000 a month. I mean, all those factors are going to relate to the ultimate goal of the county. As far as revenue from it.
But Rob, I think what Linda's asking, and sort of maybe I am too, if we did comparables on parking places like that, spaces, and those numbers we used, that would be sufficient enough even if we met the environmental requirements to put the lot there. Is that correct? We wouldn't need the appraisal then, is that right?
Well, I guess you're saying if we looked around Hudson and said, what do parking lots with 40
Right.
spaces rent for?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that's not enough information. The problem is a municipality, you're not supposed to get into the private businesses of leasing parking lots and charging parking rates and stuff. We really need to declare it surplus that we no longer need it and then dispose of it for them to use it. I'm not saying leasing is not an option, but I think the starting off point is to get the appraisal to figure out what's the value of the land. And as Rick pointed out, we probably do need some level of engineering because that land value is going to assume there isn't a lot of work that needs to be done to stabilize it into a parking lot. Because as Matt pointed out, on the parking lot that where DSS parks now, that has sunk a few times and was kind of very difficult to resurface.
Okay.
Yeah, I think finding comparable parking lot prices is going to be hard too. It's just not a lot of that.
Well, let me give you the two latest, they weren't the latest, but what the city did, or the city planning, and ultimately the city, is they sold X amount, I think it was 30 parking spaces or passes, if you will, to the former Elks Club lot over there, the municipal lot, to the brand new proposed motel, whatever the hotel. So that satisfied their parking requirement. All they had to do was buy, I think it was Mike's on the line. I don't know how many for sure. All they had to buy was 30 passes that they hand out the cars during the course of the day when somebody pulls in, and they go over to the municipal lot. So, and then of course there was Barlow. Barlow, I think, ended up buying 13 or 14 passes in the municipal lot. So that's
You know what they paid?
Yeah,
Well,
I agree with Rick. I mean, I'm not convinced. Robert Fitzsimmons, you're absolutely correct on leasing, and I mean the city's leasing things all the time for people to park. We have Amtrak, we have the Wick Hotel is leasing from HDC to park. So I'm a little confused about your opinion about the lease.
Well, we've got a formerly challenged environmental site that has underground drainage in it that needs to be analyzed to come up with some sort of value as to what those costs are, if it's even feasible to make into a parking lot. And then we've got the base value of the acreage of the land, its highest and best use being supposedly as a parking lot, depending on demand. What I'm saying is you got to get some basis of figures to come up with a reasoned decision. We can't just say, well, the guy down the street sold parking passes for $100 a year, so that's the base number. We got to take into account the whole landscape of the transaction with the environmental, the acreage, the infrastructure costs, so that you guys can make a reasoned decision as to how you're going to deal with the property.
Could we have a plan, something like this, where we can say, okay, we're going to do an appraisal and we're going to get Dean to go in there and environmentally look and see what it would take to go ahead and develop this into a parking lot, then look at those numbers, then turn around and maybe say, well, okay, could we do this like we talked originally, and then sell parking spaces or lease the parking spots out and we create the parking lot. I mean, that could be like a whole structure. We can just go 1, 2, 3, 4 and see how it goes and then make a decision, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. There's no problem with that. If the ultimate decision was the county's going to improve it to a parking lot and lease the spaces as needed, that's a fine way to do it.
So we can start from the appraisal and then and kind of keep that like format somewhat maybe in line and just work it down. Suggestion. Right. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Yeah, I'm just saying that you need the jumping off point. What's the value of the land and what's it going to cost to develop the land? And then you decide as a committee, well, this is something we don't want to get in, so we're going to deem it surplus. We don't need it and put it out to bid as is. Or you're going to improve it yourself perhaps and lease them out as needed to other people or the whole thing.
I would go along with that. I mean, I would be fine with that.
All right, we'll move to see if we can get a basic appraisal of it and ask them to consider the leasing value as well too while they're doing that.
So
Should
you
we-
need a motion
Should
for
we get a
that?
motion?
I do.
Motion.
Second.
There are motions that Jimmy seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey, Matt, you're not on this committee.
I'm not? I thought I
No.
was.
I'm just
Oh.
looking at, I'm just looking at the list and you're not.
All right. Can I leave?
Well, we're
No.
good.
No.
Hey, Kelly, I'm
Sorry.
not either, right?
No.
No, I'm not.
I know what it is. I'm on sewer sub. That's the difference.
Yeah, it's
confuse
Ron
those.
Not, Ron
You're in the
Not,
sewer.
Kitty, Jim Guzzi, Sarah, and Linda.
Okay.
That's why we need Kelly to get us all straightened out.
That's
Everything.
right.
I'm going to mute my microphone and I'll just watch.
Okay. Feel
So,
free to speak up though.
so did we get a motion and a second, correct? Or
Yes, we
got-
did.
Yes.
We all voted in favor, I think. Yep.
Yes.
All right, we'll pursue that. The next project that we spent quite a bit of time talking about last time too was the potential of a new OFA building out at Commerce Park. And it seemed like that there was interest amongst the committee to consider this. And I think if we're serious about that at all, again, here we need to start by getting an appraisal of the Philmont Kitchen building. And we did have an appraisal done of 610 a few years ago, and 5 years ago now. And that could be just updated with current sales comparables in the city of Hudson, as you know where it is. But then I'd like to solicit an engineering firm to do a basic feasibility study. And I outlined a little bit of what I think we should have in a feasibility study. And that would be to have somebody visit the two existing facilities and ascertain basic program relationships out of those buildings, compile current available mapping and property restrictions of the proposed site, develop an outline program for the new building, explore options for layout. In other words, how does the building fit on that lot? Are there building amenities such as utilities? How would we do building entrances, deliveries, and parking and whatnot? How does it all fit into a site? Do we do this building on 1 story, 2 stories? How do those things work? Develop a kind of a schematic level estimate for the project development, so that we have some kind of jumping off point to say, do we want to go down this road or not? And as you know, this is where we talked about being able to sell 2 buildings eventually by shuffling people around. Goes back to PJ's point. Yes, we're trying to move people around. Where do we put them? All a good thing. But, the number of people I've talked to do seem to think that, having a new building in the Commerce Park that we build especially for our use out there would be a good use of taxpayer money. I think there's some potential grant money for this. Not that I've eyed it all up right now, but I think that because this is serving the seniors, it can work in conjunction with the emergency management crew there at the fire training center. I think it can serve a lot of good out there, so I think that if we started down the road, then we could find some funding for it down the road, but we need to have, I can guess at really cost estimates, but we need to have somebody work with us and say, this is how big of a building you need, and this is how it would work in the future. So I think we need to do that. What I'd like to propose is last year when we did the Smart Watt program, at the end of the year, beginning of this year here, when we got all the rebates done, we ended up getting an extra $30,000 in NYSERDA grant money that came in above what we budgeted. We had budgeted 50 and ended up getting $80,000 or so in grant money, or rebate money rather. So there's an extra $30,000 that we got there that I think we could certainly cover all these professional fees with, to do the appraisals. And I'm thinking appraisals on a couple buildings like that, as well as the engineering fees. We may end up spending $15,000 or $20,000 easy, but I think that we can do that. It is professional services. We can do it without necessarily doing a formal bidding process.
So who are you planning on using to lay this building out. I mean, you need somebody with that level of experience for a commercial like this, you know?
My favorite would be to go to CPL, but Clark Patterson Lee.
Mhm.
They've done a number of other things for us and understand the county's needs. And
Do we have like a review of what they have done? I mean, that would be, if we can get that so that we can kind of look at it and see if they've done projects like this, Ron, you know?
yep,
So that we know that they're, because this is a little different animal. I mean, it's not just building a building, it's coordinating a lot together.
right, yep.
That would be good, you know, that's all.
Don't you need an RFP for this kind of thing?
Not really, because it's professional services. But yeah, if you remember, Jimmy, when we did the building analysis study, we ended up sending that to the low bidder. But the information that I'd gotten from CPL when they made a bid for that job contained an awful lot of doing just what we're asking here, you know, so I think that they would be very good at that. But
Who's CPL? I don't know those initials.
Clark Patterson Lee, that's who bought out Morris Associates. You know, Ray Jerkowski had done the sewer thing with us, but his firm used to be Morris Associates. But Clark Patterson Lee bought them out. They're a much larger outfit with a number of branches all over the state.
My biggest concern about that thing is that they have the ability, not, I mean, they're a great firm, I'm not saying that, and Ray is great. All I'm saying is that this requires more or less this is a specialized field as far as designing something like we want to do. And it's so important to put it together in such a way where we can have different uses for that building and make it that it's very, you know, it's economical to operate and long-term, and we don't have a lot of extra square footage on unusable space or whatever. So I'm just concerned that I'm really got to make sure that we've got a firm that's capable of doing that, because it doesn't mean that they're not good people. It's just that if they have expertise in this area, that's what I'm saying, you know?
I don't know if you've worked with them on some of these types of projects, Jimmy, but CPL in itself brought in, when they bought out Morris Associates, they brought in an awful lot of different levels of engineering and architecture. They've got everybody within their house, you know, that can bring in all these different types of use, whether it be space utilization. And so I certainly think that they can. I can get you some credentials from them, but I certainly think they could offer those services without any trouble. And right now, I mean, we're looking for a jumping off point. I mean, once we decide, if we decided that, okay, we could do this in a 15,000 square foot, 1-story building, we're going to have that. We would just have a budget number of X amount of dollars per square foot to build with. Then we would have to, when we got serious about that, we would have to then develop an RFP and bring in an architectural firm that would build it. And there could be input all the way along the way, as you know. But right now, I'm looking for somebody to work with us and say, what if you got rid of this and, you know, moved these people over here and did that? But,
I would just like to know what their credentials are in this area.
okay.
And this first step is very important because that sets the pace for that number that we're talking about, that jump off the bridge number, you know?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And it may scare us and we'd say, hey, we don't want to do it. You know, but.
Right. But if you don't get it designed right and laid out, you know, not crazily, but, you know, then your square footage could be off, could be under, it could be too much, you know.
Well, but you've been saying that all along that, you know, as compared to most of our county buildings are buildings that, you know, like the old school we moved into and we took over and, you know, we used the space that was there. Anytime you start designing a building so that it meets your needs, you know, if
Right.
you have somebody work with us and say, this is what you need. And you need somebody to spend a little bit of time with the staff that's out there and say, you know, what is it you need? How do you function? And start to develop the use of something or other.
Yeah, if you look at 401, look at all the wasted space. We got hallways that are
Exactly.
huge, you know, and high, and heat's wasted, and nothing's efficient, you know, square footage isn't being used properly. That's what I'm saying, you know.
Yeah. And that's what you and I talked about when we looked at John L. Edwards over there, that, you know, that was
Right.
An awful lot of space that be hard to retrofit to make it work for us. But if you start from scratch and, work with an engineering firm to develop it, but
So Ron, how much is this gonna cost, this?
I would think that this is something that's under $10,000.
I still would like to understand the difference. Why do we need an RFP for this? If Rob, can you explain this to me? It seems like we're spending money in one place where in reality it's a waste of money. If we're gonna go down this road, we should put out the RFP and be done with it.
I mean, you always have the option to do the RFP. The reason you don't have to is because it's a professional service. And you can use your discretion to hire a professional without having to put that out to bid. It's an exemption to the bidding requirement. The example I usually give is if you need a hip replacement, you don't go to the lowest bidder, you go to either a referral or a recommendation because they have a professional reputation and it uses specified skills, maybe local to the community. But that's in your judgment. You can always elect to go out to an RFP.
If you did an
I
RFP,
just
though,
didn't
what's-
really want it to duplicate something. We spend money in one place and then we go spend it again. Is it wasting time and money?
So Linda, what you're saying is that you'd like to move right to having the whole building designed in an RFP? Is that what you're stating?
Seems to me like you're looking for a consultant to give an opinion about shifting these two projects around. Looking at 610, am I correct? And looking at the kitchen in Philmont. Is that
Yes.
right?
Well, we're looking at moving the staff from 325 to a new building, and how much office space are they occupying in 325 now from the Office of the Aged, and how much space do we need? How's the kitchen functioning in Philmont, and what are their needs in the future? That type of thing. It's programming is what we're trying to do. As I say, if you got serious about this and we're going to go to do a new building, there's a whole nother level. I mean, then you're going to spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars on an architectural firm to actually design the building. That would be done with an RFP, but we don't yet have enough information in our hands or decisions. I want somebody to work with us to kick around different ideas to come up with a plan. Say this would be the best.
This is more or less like in a concept phase, where
Yeah.
we want to see what size building we think we need, how we can design it to be energy efficient, all those things. Could we maybe put offices upstairs? Could we not? With the square footage layout right on the property. So there is also, when you do a project like this, there is a concept phase that you start with, and then you take it to the next level. That's what I think Rob is trying to say.
All right. So who defines what it is that we want and what's the price? Is that we have to come up with that? We have to come up with a paragraph.
We're trying to.
Or Ron, you want to go and say, hey, I want you to hang out with me and do this.
If I could just jump in, we have to do scope of work. So we would, whoever we're asking to give us an estimate or a proposal, we'd have to tell them what we want them to do in terms of looking at existing square footage versus square footage we need. But I would call it a scope of work. We'd have to outline.
And that's what I tried to do. Those 5 lines announced earlier.
Yeah, I would question, are we limiting ourselves? Because there's like the MIT department. We could say, oh, we're going to move them over there. But if we're always shuffling one place to another, maybe look at a slightly bigger picture right now and make sure that we've got everybody in the right places. And not.
I agree with that, Sarah. I think, we have space crunches all around the county, and if we can take care of it with one project, that would be better. I mean, you're right. MIS right now is they're shoehorned into their spot. We need more space for them, to the point where with COVID, we can't really have them all work in the office because we're afraid that they're too close together.
And in future also with all the telehealth and all these things that maybe some departments don't need as much space on a campus, whereas some people are going to be working from home. Yeah, I just think it's a larger question if we can include a little broader thinking right now.
So we can, but I think that I wanted to go step by time because, you know, trying to spend $100,000 to have all of our departments analyzed is just a bit much without having a better plan, you know, but
Well,
that's what the committee's here for.
well, I don't think we have to have them all analyzed, but
No.
I think we know MIS is a problem.
Yep.
We know we want to move OFA, and then the question is, if we were to build a building, do we move anybody else? If, for example, we sold 610, if we sold 610, they're going to have to relocate somebody else. So it's
Yep.
just more of a shuffling than, but it's not every department. It's just, you know, it might be 5 or 6 departments.
Yeah, I think we can keep it simple. The question is too, is when you're building this kitchen and you got refrigeration and you got, you know, different type equipment in there, we're not sure how much office space we can incorporate into that lot either, that footprint, and make it efficient. So that's where this concept thing or scope of work, whatever, well, the concept, you know, process kind of comes in, you know?
And that's where I think it's important to bring in an engineering firm, somebody that can work with that, because as you say, Jimmy, I mean, I've kind of looked at that and gotten some information from the local building inspector and but, you know, there is site limitations as to what you can do. And then, you know, at what point in time does somebody kick it around and say it's cheaper to do 2 stories or 1 story? You know,
Right.
these are cost estimates that we need some professional advice on. But I do understand this could be a moving target. You know, we may get some information and then say, well, what if you do this? What if we did that? And you know, we can expand the scope of work to include, you know, the IT department as well as relocating the staff in 610. I didn't want to get it so expensive that it scared everybody. That's all.
Yeah, I don't know if that's taking it to another whole level. Maybe we are better off to keep it on the initial thoughts that we did have as far as OFA and offices and everything moved in there, and then see roughly where that is. And if we need to incorporate more or we want to, we can, because the numbers are going to be up there. Let's face it, you know.
Yeah, but if we knew that we could move all the offices out of, you know, 325, if we could move the office of the aged out of 325, then we can say, okay, you just freed up, you know, 5,000 or 6,000 square feet of space. Now the next step is down the road of, okay, who are we going to move in there and how do we empty out 610? And, you know, there's steps to this process, I think.
Don't tell the DAs.
I also see.
Okay.
I also see PJ over there.
Getting nervous.
He's going, oh my God, I got to come up. Where's this money
Right.
coming
Yeah.
from?
That's why I tried to tell him there was grant money out there, but, you know, he said,
We're talking millions.
right.
Well,
Millions.
We are talking millions. Yes, we are.
the sale of the 2 buildings could probably produce close to $1 million, if not more.
I think I agree with everybody. I think, you know, Ron, I think you're on the right track, that's for sure. But again, you know, if I understand you're trying to keep the price low, but we don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish either.
Right.
And I think that maybe if we look at the whole situation, the space needs, so on and so forth. And, you know, as I'm sitting here, I'm just thinking, you know, OFA and the healthcare consortium work hand in hand. That relationship there and then being housed together work hand in hand because they complement one another.
Mhm.
And the situation, you could free up a lot more space at 325. And, you know, maybe we should be taking some of those into consideration as well. And instead of building, you know, a 10,000 square foot building, maybe it should be a 15,000 square foot building, put the appropriate people together, just like what you said, and go from there. But again, it all depends on price, so on and so forth, and, you know, whatever.
That's the kind of stuff we need, though, PJ. Your type thinking, where and you guys know this better than I do, definitely. Where what we can blend together there and not, and we don't need to pay people to do that. I mean, we know that ourselves, you know. So
Right.
you could throw that in there and Ron could add that to it and
But what I do want to know is how much space do we have to build on out there at Commerce Park? You know, I mean, we've got 10 acres of land. How much of it's usable? What are the facilities there?
You need to take into consideration, we're moving the backup 911 there as well.
Right.
So, yeah, it's, you know, it looks like a big space, but in reality, it's not a big space. So
Yeah.
you're right. So, but you will need a consultant to try to figure that out. But we're going to have to go to this consultant first and just say, this is our wish list.
Mhm.
What can we do? What can we fit realistically?
right.
You have 3 floors. Can you spread it out on one? Whatever. And I mean, I think that's the way to go. So I think you need to develop the wish list first, and then, but absolutely, you need a consultant to evaluate all this.
Right.
Before you even decide what you want.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So
Need
maybe
that first stage.
we can get together and come up with a wish list.
Mhm.
All right.
On that.
Maybe we should, that could be the next step right now. Just get
Okay.
the wish list put together, Ron, and
All right.
then go from there, you know?
Let's get a collection of agencies that we know are space crunched and
Mhm.
try and throw them all into the mix at one time here a little bit. Is that where you want to go?
Well, that makes sense. Like PJ was saying, you know, things that
Yep.
they can work hand in hand with and would complement one another, that kind of.
Yep.
And see which ones have to be in Hudson, like Healthcare Consortium. I don't know how much walk-in they have. I would think they get a lot of local traffic, but we can ask them.
And I did break that up to OFA. You know, I had Kevin kind of give me an analysis of that, and he really didn't feel that they had an awful lot of walk-in Hudson traffic, you know,
Not for
um,
OFA.
and they would be happy to be out there. So that's one agency that we could move out there where we can build cheaper than we can anywhere in the city of Hudson. That's for sure. So, but yeah, working with a consultant and engineering firm, and I think there's a lot of help there. And I do think that no matter who you bring on, we're going to get involved in this and then say, well, what if we did that and what if we did this? But yeah, I think let's all just think about it and come up with a wish list of what agencies we know are space strapped. I'll start writing them down, and I'll share with everybody what I wrote up as what I wanted to have somebody do as far as programming of these couple agencies, and then we'll see.
Ron, can we also include the amount of cars that are part of those programs? Like how many cars does Health Consortium?
Yeah. Because I know parking at 325 is always a problem. Seems like parking everywhere in the city of Hudson's a problem, right?
Yeah, that's.
No, but and what the needs are for the plans that we'd like to change. That cars are part of it.
Right.
And Ron, one more issue. I would go back to Dan Amasi and
Yep.
see the number of employees he has there now. And to Sarah's point, telehealth is a major impetus moving forward.
Yes.
In the governor's budget, there's going to be money available to reimburse telehealth. And I would think that some of his employees, or maybe many of his employees, can work from home. Because when we went through the serious part of the epidemic here, the pandemic, I should say, you know, they were bringing in just about as much revenue as they did prior to
I
being
know.
in the offices down there.
I've
So
been
you
amazed at that.
free up extra space as well. But, you know, we're going to have to go outside that box, and I would involve him in that conversation.
Okay.
And they didn't need parking either. We were getting more people come in because
Right.
they didn't have to find parking.
Yeah.
That was a big factor.
Yeah.
Hey Ron, Brian here with facilities. Do you guys want me to send you guys like copies of the floor plans for 325? Everyone on this committee?
Yep, you can do that. I have them. I know you've given them to me in the past, but yeah, share them with other people so they got ideas.
Okay.
Why don't, Brian, you can share them with Kelly and then Kelly can distribute them?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm sitting looking at them right now. I'll drop them off tomorrow.
Okay.
All right, so we'll come back next month with a bit of a wish list and where we need to go.
Sounds good.
So are we gonna, talk about doing the appraisal on, or upgrading the appraisal on 610?
And the kitchen?
So yeah, we could break that out and do that separately. I was suggesting all this at once, but if you, and again, I think that those two appraisals are probably going to take a while. As you know, the real estate market is booming, and all the appraisals are probably busy. But they're going to take a while anyway. Eventually, in order to fit into the piece, we know that we need to have those numbers. So
Yeah, you almost need to do that stuff. Start it now. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Should we have Rob get prices and get back to us for the appraisals?
Yep.
Yep.
And again, I got the appraisal here for 610. That was Robinson appraisal.
Yep.
And because they did it before, I would probably think that we would just go back to them. And I don't know them any better than anybody else, but they did it, and I think they've got everything. All they got to do is just go to new, prices in the city of Hudson. So
Yeah, that shouldn't be a heavy lift in terms of money.
right. As far as the programming of different departments, we'll hold off and expand the scope of that. I was kind of focusing on just, a couple of departments and buildings, but we can broaden that.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. That's about all I have. Anybody else have anything to bring to space utilization?
So do we need motions on those last items, or are we just, the
Yes,
appraisals
we
of
wanted
those
to do
buildings?
that. I'm sorry. Yeah, the two appraisals, we should have a motion on those.
I'll make a motion.
Second,
Second, all in favor?
aye.
Could somebody just repeat that motion so it's clear?
So yeah, we're asking the firm that did the appraisal on 610 State Street in 2016 to update that to modern day cost estimates, as well as preparing a cost estimate on the Philmont Nutrition site out there on Main Street.
What about the lot? Are we doing that?
That was a separate motion. We did that. Yes, we're going to get an
Yeah, we
appraisal of that.
did that at the beginning,
Maybe
yeah.
we could have the same person do all of it and it's cheaper. I don't know that. We'll let Rob deal with that one. But we did it in two separate motions, right, Kelly?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Did we do all in favor on the two
No,
other
you didn't.
appraisals? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Entertain a motion to adjourn
Motion.
so we can go to county government.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Aye.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Thank you.